Sandeep would be most critical of which action from the passage? Now, this question is asking us to analyze Sandeep's relationship with other characters in the passage. And it's not explicitly linked with the previous question, but I just want to hop back to the previous question and expose it, because I think that the two are kind of related. In question 7, we came to the conclusion that Sandeep viewed the adults as immature, and we know from the text what he thinks they're being immature about. Their overblown reactions to the gift giving and the son-in-law's attempt to show obeisance, to show great respect by trying to touch everyone's feet. In the passage, Sandeep says that he's come to the conclusion that the adults were all quite mad, and he expressed frustration, saying, like, will they never grow up? And having that in mind from the previous question is really going to help us on this one. So why don't we go back to that paragraph where Sandeep expresses his frustration, beginning on line 55. So Sandeep meanwhile had come to the conclusion that the grown-ups were mad, each after his or her own fashion. Simple situations were turned into complex, dramatic ones. Not until then did everyone feel important and happy. Will they never grow up? thought Sandeep irately. Okay, so what is he referring to specifically here? Well, we've got this foot-touching sequence. So foot-touching is an option. We can talk about that. And then we've got this gift-giving sequence. So if that's an option, we're going to talk about that. Let's go back and see what our options are. So we've got the two boys playing carom, Mamima's inquiry about the gender of the child, the old lady's reaction to the gift, and the son and daughter-in-law waiting in the anteroom. Now, what I did when I was going through question 7 is I did like a keyword search throughout the passage, just looking for the usage of the name Sandeep, and I didn't see anything about the boys playing carom or Mamima inquiring about the gender of the child. My instinct is to cross those two off right now, because I think those were just narrated straight. Sandeep didn't really have much of an opinion about them. But we know that he judged the way that the old lady responded to the candy and the yogurt. He thought it was ridiculous. Everyone was making a mountain of a molehill. He also thought the same thing about the foot touching, which is maybe related to D, the son and daughter-in-law waiting in the anteroom. Let me just pop back into the text and see if there's any opinions from Sandeep about the son and daughter-in-law waiting in the anteroom. Okay, line 41, the son and the daughter-in-law emerged shyly from the anteroom. Now, we've got this word shyly, right, this adverb, and that's really the descriptor is really the only source of any kind of opinion, and this comes from the narrator. It doesn't necessarily come from Sandeep. Even though the narrator is kind of aligned with Sandeep's perspective, there's nothing necessarily critical here about the way they're described emerging from the anteroom. So I'm going to cross off D and circle C. This would be very different, however, if choice D were something about the son, during the foot-touching sequence, because Sandeep's irritation applies equally to both of those encounters. But the test would never put us in that situation because there's always only one correct answer. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're looking at two choices that seem to you to be equally plausible, recheck your understanding of the stem. Reread the question again very carefully. Make sure you've rephrased it because there might be something you've missed. There will not be a situation in which two choices are correct at the same time. It's one question, one answer. So using what I knew from the previous question, I already had an idea in my head about which action Sandeep was going to be the most critical of. And then I jumped back into the passage just to make sure. And I didn't bother to check the text citations for A and B because C is so much stronger. And I know from the scan of the passage that I did for the previous question that Sandeep's name doesn't even show up until like line 40. And these two events take place in the beginning of the passage.